Hello, we are here with Devina from Fairtrade India, and we use the chance at this European Development Days to ask Devina some questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Devina, Fairtrade in India, how important is Fairtrade in India for the society?
So, fair trade is important for all societies. I think that the world needs a consumer movement that is fair to the planet and its people. The world needs a movement of change because we are going to be consuming food and fashion, and there is a need for it to come from clean supply chains. I think India needs it more so because one farmer in India has been committing suicide every half an hour for the past 20 years. Over 20 years. It's the largest wave of suicides in human history.
Well, let me. Did I understand it right? Like every half an hour, a farmer in India commits suicide?
Yeah, and it's the largest wave of suicide in human history.
The largest wave of suicide? And why do they commit suicide?
Because of unfair prices, no market support, because of supply chains today being so complicated that we don't know where our products are coming from.
Oh wow, okay. And Fairtrade can solve that?
Fairtrade is an intervention. I feel like Fairtrade does bring an ethos of sustainable practices, the environment of change, as well as the power of Fairtrade is the power of a people's movement. So I feel like if people get together and consumers demand for fairer prices, knowing where their products come from, who are the people behind their choices, I feel like it can definitely make a difference.
Wow.
And I think it's a need of the hour. It's an important, pressing problem, and I feel like as a community, we always believed in local sustainability. India has always been sufficient with its agricultural needs to have whatever it needs for its daily consumption, but somehow trade became so complicated, and in the glitz and glamour of fashion, we forgot who the makers of food and fashion were.
Okay, Devina, some very practical things. What are the most important goods, fair trade goods, that are traded out of India?
So Fairtrade has always been catering to a global market. There has always been Fairtrade food and fashion and tea and coffee, which has been exported all over the world.
From India also?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is Fairtrade, is India also a Fairtrade consuming country, or is it just an exporting country, or do you have Fairtrade goods that are also sold in India?
There are 1.3 billion people there who eat and wear clothes. So there is a big consumption opportunity in that country. And I feel like, India always consumed from its neighborhood grocery store. So I feel like connecting the farmer and consumer in India is relatively easy because someone can get into their car, drive for a few hundred kilometers and meet their farmers. I think that the consumer movement for the Fairtrade labeled products is still very new in India because people are beginning to understand that what the mark signifies and stands for. But I think slowly and eventually that's the only way forward. I feel like a lot of schools joining the movement and communities joining onto Fairtrade is really going to make a difference. I think in Europe it's much easier because of the number of Fairtrade towns and schools and universities. So we have India's first Fairtrade school where a bunch of kids go to school in Fairtrade uniforms in Vidya Shilp Academy in Bangalore. And we have Pondicherry and Auroville coming on to become Fairtrade towns.
Fairtrade towns, yeah.
So many people will make India a consumer country as well.
Yeah. Because did you know that in Austria we also have fair trade towns, and in my region there was the first fair trade region in all Austria. Was in my region. We are very proud of that.
So I think people from your region need to talk to our supporters from towns, and they need to talk to each other about how to become a fair trade town because it's also new for us. Even doing the first school and the first university and getting people to understand the message and is the greatest challenge today because there is a pressing problem, there is a possible intervention, it's just getting people together through events like this.
Yeah, very nice. And my last question about raw materials, because India is also exporting a lot of raw materials, also for the electronics industry, for mobile phones and computers. I mean, different raw materials, but so far there's only a bit of fair trade gold, but no other fair traded raw materials. Would you say that in the near future there is a chance to have fair trade standards for raw materials from India?
So, a lot of times when we talk about the progress of India, we say about how a person who has a certain income level has a mobile phone. Because he has access to information and he has access to technology and he has access to make a phone call. And because of India having the rural-urban divide and the distances, that's always been a great challenge of how to talk to each other, how to communicate a message, you know. And I feel like mobile phones are a big part of the Indian culture. And just, I would say a few years ago, India started segregating its e-waste, right? We didn't even, and today one of the biggest problems in India still, even with the waste segregation units, is how to actually sustainably dispose of the e-waste. At the same time, raw materials and procurement and modern slavery and human exploitation, unfortunately, India is my country, I'm highly patriotic about it and I'm really hopeful that things change, but it's a reality, you know, these things exist. And I feel like there is a need for a global demand to push India to get into fairer production standards, and that's why I feel like acts like the Due Diligence Act, the Modern Slavery Act will really help it in many ways. I think Fairtrade as an organization and the global movement works with textiles and food and chocolates, and you know that is the sector that they are very good at. I know that everybody at Fairtrade would want standards for fair phones. You know, we obviously are all people who believe in fair working conditions and, you know, environmental sustainability. So I don't know how that journey will be and when we'll get there, but I do definitely believe that it's a problem that we need to deal with today. You know, it's one of the most important things to do if we want to, because you know this is something we use
every day,
for so many hours a day. You know, we are literally on our phones to work, to get around, to book an Uber, and I feel like how could, and none of us want to support exploitation or slavery. You know, if we knew that there was some kid working in some mine to mine the, you know, and that's something I want to ask you, how complicated is the supply chain, you know?
The supply chain is very complicated, and that's, I think, why we should join forces, and it would be very nice to work together, and that's a bit the suedwind job also, to inform our audiences about that. Yeah, thank you very much. That was really interesting for me. I hope it was also interesting for you. Best wishes from India, Austria and Brussels.